having the fundamental understanding of Chef or Puppet, you'll not be able to leverage this particular service of AWS, right? So fundamental understanding of Chef or Puppet is must, because AWS OpsWork purely uses Chef and Puppet to deliver the services, right? So both Chef and Puppet are nothing but your open source automation tools, which supports variety of operating system, right from your Linux, Solarix, Windows, Ubuntu, Debian. So different platforms are supported by this Chef and Puppet. Now Chef supports certain platforms, Puppet supports certain platforms. Like Debian, Ubuntu, and all of that are supported by your Puppet, whereas Chef will support your Solaris, your Linux, and Windows, and all those platforms, right? So let's understand more of this. So OpsWork mainly makes management of complete application lifecycle, right from provisioning, okay, to configuration management, to application deployment, software updates, monitoring, access control. All of this of your application can be managed under one single window. This is only limited to your application. When I say application, I mean you cannot manage your load balance, you cannot manage your SQS, you cannot manage your S3, you cannot manage those kind of resources. Only those resources which are purely interlinked with your application, like your servers, your databases, those things can be managed using your OpsWork, right? So let's move a bit forward. Let's talk about a couple of things here. So OpsWork offers three major services. You have something called as AWS OpsWork Stack, OpsWork for Chef Automate, and OpsWork for Puppet Enterprise. Okay, so these are three services from AWS under OpsWork. You have something called as OpsWork Stack, which will allow you to perform end-to-end application lifecycle management. OpsWork for Chef Automate will leverage all the open source libraries, tools, and relevant, test kitchens and all of those things, libraries, relevant recipes of your chef. When I talk about OpsWork for Puppet Enterprise basically will leverage your Forge modules, okay, for the purpose of centralized management. So as I was telling, who are looking for end-to-end configuration solution with better automation management solution can go for OpsWork for Stack. OpsWork for Chef Automate, configuration management with community script open sources, again with tools which are compatible with Chef without any operational overhead. Puppet will leverage all your Puppet Forge module, again without operational overhead. So it is not mandatory that you should know both Chef and Puppet. Either one of this should be fine. Okay, either one of this should be fine. So moving a bit forward, let's get started on understanding what is OpsWork Stack. So OpsWork Stack, when I talk about, you have a very high level entity which is called as Stack. Now what is Stack? Try to understand very clearly. The group of resources which you want to collectively manage, you put it under one single stack. The group of resources which you want to collectively manage, those resources, you put it under stack, right? This will basically allow you to manage applications and servers on AWS as well as in your on-premises. So let's understand the components, okay, so that we all have a better understanding. So stack, okay, the components of OpsWork, there are multiple components. You have something called a stack, layer, instances, cookbooks, applications. So rather than talking here, I think it would make much sense if I show you to you on the dashboard, right? Say OpsWork So this will take me to Opswork dashboard. So this is what your Opswork dashboard looks like. This is what your Opswork dashboard looks like. You have Opswork stack, Opswork for Chef Automate, Opswork for Puppet Enterprise, right? Guys, am I making sense so far? Can I have quick confirmation? Everyone? Awesome. Thank you. So many people confirming yes. Because so far I have not spoken anything technical. I've been talking in a very layman language, so it should not be a big challenge to understand that. Right? Prasanna, any specific doubt? Only you said no, others said yes. So just want to check any specific doubt. What is the use of Opswork? So as I said, when you want to effectively manage thousands of your resources from one single window, rather than, you know, doing this job on each and every server, right? You use your Opswork. Suppose you want to upgrade your thousands of machine, right? Doing this job manually can take a long amount of time, right? So using Opswork, you can do it seamlessly without having to log into every machine, without having to, you know, do this job one by one on every machine. So not only upgrade, you can edit some properties file. Basically, you can perform operational management. I hope now I'm making sense. Right? So as I said, there are three variants. You have Opswork Stack, Opswork for Chef Automate, Opswork for Puppet Enterprise. So let's say Opswork Stack. So Opswork Stack has multiple components. You have to first create a stack. Within stack, you have multiple layers, multiple components. We'll talk about that. So it gives you a choice. Which type of stack do you want to add? Whether sample stack, Chef 12 compatible or Chef 11. So I'm saying Chef 11 and I'll name this as demo, name of the stack. I can choose region of my choice. And I can also define my code compatibility. Okay. So when I say code compatibility, allow me 1 second. So my chef code, my application code are available in this particular GitHub. Okay. So I say yes, I want to use some custom chef book. Cookbooks are nothing but chef cookbooks are nothing but kind of your custom recipes, your libraries, all of that, your custom codes. So I say yes, I want to use, and I give my GitHub details, right? And I say add stack, and I say add stack. Once I create a stack, as I said, stack is a high level entity. Stack is nothing but a high level entity. Once my stack is created, I need to ensure that my resources can be effectively managed. And to do so, there are multiple components in a stack, right? You have something called as layer, you have something called as instances, apps, deployment commands, resources, monitoring, permissions, tags, all of this. So layer is nothing but like which layer do you want to go with? Whether you want a front end, you want a back end, you want a database, web application or database, right? So you can deploy that from here. Pay attention. You can deploy from here. You can choose front end as your load balancer, your application server, your DB, other options, and you can also customize it depending on your requirement. You can also use containers or you can also leverage RDS, that is your databases, right? So depending on your business requirement, you can define which layer you want to use. Which layer do you want to deploy? So right now, if I'm saying PHP application server, and with this application server, if I want RDS, then I can add an RDS instance as well. The choice is always mine. So now that I'm adding PHP application server, I'll say add a layer. So I have added a layer in a stack. Pay attention. Now I've added a layer in a stack. So if I have to put this in a diagram, how your AWS OpsWork works, please understand very clearly. Let's assume that in your infrastructure, you have some hundreds of instances. Either you can create instances or you have already running infrastructure, then you can register these existing instances also. Okay. So if I want, I can register some existing instances. If I want, I can create new instances. Right now, since I don't have anything existing, I'm just saying create new. Right. Let's assume I have this instances. So if I want to change some properties files of this instances, can I say I'll have to log into every machine and do that changes? Yes or no? If I want to change some properties, if I want to upgrade something, if I want to install something, then can I say I'll have to log into every machine? Obviously, yes, by default. Without OpsWork coming into picture, if I have to manage this, then I'll have to either log into every machine or have some kind of centralized mechanism. Yes or no? Everyone? Right? So with your OpsWork coming into picture, it is basically giving you a dashboard. It is basically giving you a dashboard where you can create something called a stack. So once you create a stack under AWS OpsWork, it allows you to define your layers. It allows you to define a layer, create a stack, sorry, not layer. You create a stack. Within this stack, you can add layer. Let's say one layer where you want to add all your front end servers, and another layer where you want to add, or within the same layer, you want to add your backend also and your databases also. So onto this layer, you register all of these instances. You add your instances as part of this layer. Okay. Once these instances are added as part of this layer, then you can collectively manage all these resources by executing command on this dashboard, and it will execute those changes on these servers. Am I making sense with the diagrammatic representation of everyone? Yes, no? Please understand, if I have these hundreds of instances, I can create a stack. Within a stack, I add a layer. Within layer, I register these instances. Once these instances are registered as part of this stack, okay, once these instances, all these instances, okay, are registered as part of this layer of this particular stack, then from my OpsWork dashboard, I can execute commands on these instances. And once I execute command from this OpsWork dashboard, it will get propagated. It will make those changes on this particular instances. Are we all clear? Now, am I making sense? Everyone? Narayana, Edureka guest. Couple of people who asked me to repeat. Can I have your quick confirmation? Are we all on the same page now? Am I making sense? And onto this layer, if you don't have an existing instance, you can also add instance from here. You can add instance from here. So that will get created under your EC2 dashboard. Clear now? So right now, if you understand very clearly, I've created a stack. This is the stack. And on this stack, I've created a layer. Now onto this layer, okay, onto this layer, I can add an EC2 instance. I can click on instances. So if I have an existing instance, all I have to say is register an instance. If I already have an instance, all I have to say is register instances. Okay. So even not only your on-prem instances, even from your on-prem, you can add your servers here. Okay. That is one thing. Right now, if I don't have it, like in my scenario, I don't have it. So I just say add an instance. Okay. I just say add an instance. So this adding of instance can also be done from here. Okay. So as I said, if you have an instances, register it. If you don't have it, add it. So right now what I've done is I've added here. I don't have instances. So rather than registering, I've added. It's not mandatory that all instances should be of same kind of configuration. Your instances could be of different configuration as well. Am I making sense? It's not mandatory that all your instances should be of the same configuration. They can be of different configuration. Now comes a $1 million question here. Prashant, how Opswork dashboard is able to propagate changes on these instances just by registering? So basically, please understand, when you register or when you add an instance, there is an agent or your client, Opswork client, which is installed on every machine. There is an agent or an Opswork client which is installed on every machine when you register or when you add from here, right? So if I say start, it will start with the installation of that client or an agent on all this machine. And this client or this agent act as a medium of communication between your resources and your Opswork dashboard. Guys, am I making sense? This agent or this particular client act as a medium of communication between your resources and your Opswork dashboard. Are we all clear? Yes. So come back to the slides. So as I said, you can add layer. Okay. You can add layer. Once you add a layer, you can add instances. You can add instances. When you are adding an instance, by default, it will ensure an Opswork stack agent runs on every instance. Okay. Because this is what enables communication between your resources. Let it be even your on-premises, let it be your cloud. Okay, this is what enables communication between your resource and your Opswork dashboard, right? So let's understand next part. Next is nothing but your cookbooks repository. Cookbook repository are nothing but what kind of changes, what kind of codes you want to propagate, right? What kind of automation you want to do, what kind of configuration management you want to do. You define all that as a script, and that script is written as a packages. Okay, you call them as a recipes, data banks, libraries. All of that are needed for this packages to execute changes. Okay, so those are available in your GitHub libraries, or you can have it in your own respective locations. So we initially gave this custom chef cookbooks, right? We defined it from our GitHub. So you can, these are all your chef terms, not going in details of it, okay, because it will only confuse you. So understand, recipes are nothing but your configuration which you want to push. These codes are written in a Ruby language. Okay, you have data banks which are nothing but your global variables. which can be referenced at various places within the stack, right? And you can also deploy your application. You can also add your application. So right now you notice my instance is setting up. It would take good amount of 5-10 minutes for this instance to be completely ready. Okay. So once it is ready, we'll come back to it. But meanwhile, let's go back to our stack once again. So I have added a layer. I have added an instance. Now I'm going to add an application. Like the application file, I'm going to put the raw application code. Okay. I'm going to put the raw application code here. And from here, I can deploy this application on different AWS instances. So if I show you on my stack once again, I have layers, instances, applications. Now, a couple of people were asking me, Prashant, how would we execute those changes and what all changes we can execute, right? So answer your question here. On your stack level, you have option called run command. So pay attention to this. You can execute all these commands. You have an update dependency option, install some dependency. You have an option to update custom cookbooks. Okay, some automation again. Execute certain recipes, a set of commands or codes which you want to execute, right? Set up something, configure something on your instance level, upgrade your operating system. So now something for which you don't have command here, then you can say update some custom cookbooks. Okay, you can define your custom chef code, okay, here. And right now we don't have any instance running. Once our instances are running, we'll get a choice on which all instance do you want to propagate this choice, this changes. You can select them and say update. Guys, am I making sense? Everyone? Yes? Any questions, any doubts, any queries while your instance is coming up? I want to quickly check with all of you. Any questions from anyone? May I have quick confirmation? If no question, quickly confirm telling no question. Tell me use case of OpsWorks. So I've already repeated thrice. I'm not sure if you have paid attention or not. So as I said, when you have hundreds of resources and you want to effectively manage them collectively, right? Then you can leverage your OpsWork. Like I've explained with this diagram also, if you have hundreds of servers, you want to install some, let's say you want to install some daemons, HTTP daemon on each of this machine. So ideally you should be doing this job manually. Yes or no? Narayana, ideally you would be doing this job manually, correct? So with OpsWork, what it says, like all of this job, if you want to do manually, if you have 10, 12 instances, it makes sense. But imagine as an organization, you're big enough and you have some thousands of instances. And on all these thousands of instances, you want to install HTTP daemon, you want to install some other daemons. Do you think you can do this job manually? You think it is possible to do this job manually? Even if yes, then it is going to take a long amount of time. Agree with me? So with OpsWork, what it says, register all these instances as part of your OpsWork, push these changes from here. You don't have to do this job manually. You once execute the command and it will ensure that all of these changes are propagated, all this installation, all these changes are propagated on all these thousands of instances through one single window. Am I making sense? Can I monitor application logs for those all hundreds of resources with Chef? Yes, you can. It allows you to monitor as well. So here you have an option for monitoring as well. Narayana, are we clear? So you have options for monitoring as well. You can leverage different options. What all metrics you want to monitor, you have all those choices available. You can define them, and accordingly you'll be able to monitor different resources. Now answering a couple of other questions. When you create EC2 instance, will you be able to choose the configurations? So when you say configuration, you mean the instance type? Yes. What should be the instance type? Which VPC it should be created in? This is what you refer by configuration, right? If I'm not wrong. Yes. Like when I'm adding an instance here, pay attention. If I'm adding an instance here, by default, it is giving me a size detail. Making sense? I have a choice here to decide my instance size. Also, I have a choice to decide my subnet. VPC is already selected when you create your OpsWork dashboard. When you create a stack, at that point of time, you have already selected VPC. But apart from that, it gives you a choice to select your subnet. Is that answering your question? Yes? No? How about operating system and all of that? So even that, while creating stack, it gives you a choice. So here, if I say add a stack, it gives me a choice which operating system you want to use. In the stack creation section itself, it is giving you a choice. And this is where you can even define your VPC. Okay. Other question. Once we upgrade done through instance, do we have an option to roll back? If the upgrade does not go well, you want to roll back? Is that your question? Yes, it is possible. You have to execute the reverse command. I'll here where I showed you option to upgrade. You'll have to define upgrade operating system, and you can define the command like in the advanced section. In case if this does not go through, define a script that it will automatically roll back. Clear? Is everyone's question answered? Can I move forward? Everyone, are we all on the same page? How to create stack, how to add layers, how to add instances, how to add your application, right? So right now my instance has come up. Now it is online, and if I click on this public IP address, currently there is no application. Currently there is no application on this instance, right? So now I go to my instance, I go to my stack, sorry, I go to my stack, I have this application. Now let's say I want to deploy this application on this particular instance. So I don't have to log into instance or anything. I just say deploy. Now this application deploy window allows you so many options. You can deploy, you can undeploy, you can roll back to previous version of application. You can start your web server, you can stop your web server, you can restart your web server. All of this is possible from one single window. Am I making sense? So right now we want to deploy our application. So I'll just say deploy application. And here, as I was telling, you get a choice on which instance do you want to deploy this. So right now I have only one instance. So I can select that. But even if I have multiple instances, I can decide on which instances I want to deploy. So I can say deploy here. And the moment I click deploy, so this is the same way it would get deployed to hundreds of instances. I don't have to log into every 100 instances. Okay, from one single window, just say deploy, and it will eventually get deployed to all my hundreds of instances. Right now, the deployment is still in progress, so we'll have to wait a few minutes. So it says root is deploying demo, which is nothing but name of the application to one instance. So we'll have to wait few minutes till the deployment gets completed. Even for demo, it will come with a cost. It is not part of your free tier. Okay, so this will come with a cost, guys, when you're practicing. You notice my application is deployed. Earlier it was saying not found. Now you notice your PHP application is now running on the host Prashant in your own dedicated environment in AWS. From one single window, I can push. So basically, if my developers can update the code on GitHub, then I can directly update here on my instances. Am I making sense on how to use your AWS OpsWork, everyone? Can I have quick confirmation from all of you, please? Any questions, doubts, queries? How OpsWork work hand in hand with your containers? So basically here, as a part of layer, when you add your containers, right? As a part of your layers, when you add your containers, even on those, your agent gets installed. And that's how you're effectively able to manage your containers as well. So Narayana, I think your question was more from the management of your containers as well, right? So when you add a layer here, it gives you that choice. It gives you that choice that, you know, you can deploy your agent on that container as well. You can deploy agent on your container as well. So right now, since we don't have it, I can add a container cluster. So I should have it created. It will get registered. And once that registration is done here, ECS cluster is registered here, you say add it to layer, and rest is the similar fashion. So you have to register that cluster. Am I making sense, Narayana? Yes. Your cluster for your ECS container, when we say, it will not work as an individual. You have to create cluster, a group of, resources kind of thing. So containers, you cannot directly add as like individual instance. Here in containers, you will have to create cluster. In cluster, you will have multiple choices, whether you want a Windows cluster or a Linux based. So you define that. Okay. So when you say, like, let's say Linux plus networking cluster, it will give you a choice on how many machines and all of that to be created, number of instances in this cluster. So for the effective management, you'll have to define all of these details here. Okay. And you can say create an empty cluster, or you can say create a cluster with some instances. It would not be like your, like how you register your EC2 instance. Your ECS works slightly differently. So that was how you add your instances. Now, okay, sorry. I clicked on stack. I wanted to show something. Now, so Venkata said, can you show me the logs? Can you show me the logs for this instances? Absolutely, why not? So we will see the logs as well. So these are your logs from your EC2 instances. These are your logs from your EC2 instances. So this is your upgrade logs or setup deployment logs, right? So you have different types of logs available here: setup log, configure log, deploy logs. So those can be viewed. And apart from that, if you want to specifically go back and view your monitoring logs, so click on this, say CloudWatch logs. If you require it, say I require, and it will come with additional cost. Am I making sense? And you can monitor your resources by clicking on this monitoring on a layer level. Venkat, are we clear? So that's your AWS ops work. That's your AWS ops work, right? So as I was saying, when you want to execute some commands, it will give you a choice. Let's say I want to update dependency. So it gives me a choice on which instances. Right now I have only one instance, so I don't have choice to select multiple. If I can either select all, I can select specific instance depending on my business requirement, and I can say update dependency. That's it. It will initiate the updates, and here you can check root is running update dependency on instance. Okay, so it will execute those changes on my instances. It will execute those changes on my instances. Is it support for a backup and revert? So if you want to perform backup, rollback, you need to write your own custom codes. By default, you don't have an available cookbooks. Update your custom cookbooks, where if you want to take any specific backup or you want to perform some rollback, right? Application rollback is supported, but any other rollback, let's say you executed some changes, you want to roll back that change, right? On an instance level, not on an application level, then you need to write your own custom cookbooks. But on an application level, if you want to do this, you don't have any major challenge. Go to your deploy option. Right now, if you notice, I had deployed this application. If I want to undeploy this, so just say one single command, say undeploy, and say undeploy here. Okay, and very soon you will notice it will start throwing 404 not found kind of error. Where save the location, how to save location? I did not understand. What do you want to save? When you say where save, what save? I did not understand. What do you mean by that? You mean the backup storage is what you're referring to? That you need to define whether you want to save that in an S3 bucket or you want to create a snapshot of your EBS volume. So that you need to define. Because this is an EC2 instance, right? So you can create a snapshot of your root volumes and all of that. So if you want to save that, so obviously it will save under your EBS only. Just check the chef has CLI. Yes, it is written in a Ruby language. Pawan, are we clear? You need to define where you want to store your backups. Like even in if we are doing this job manually, we have to define, right? If we are taking a backup, where should I store that backup? Your service will not intelligently understand that, okay, this is where I'm supposed to store. Unless until you define, you'll not be able to, right? The same ways it works. So you notice now my application code is undeployed. So the logs will be available here to check what all it did to perform the undeployed job. Okay. So this is my undeployed code. So that was about your AWS OpsWorks stack. Okay. So we just saw how to deploy, undeploy, how to execute your own commands, right? So now lifecycle events. Normally you set up, you configure, deploy, undeploy, shut down. So when we created instance, first it was setting up, then we configured it. I mean, when we say configured, I mean the agent installation, all of that is your configuration part, right? Then you deploy, you undeploy if you want, right? You can remove application, you can deploy application, shut down, as the name suggests, it will shut down your machine, right? So start web server, stop web server, restart web server, rollback. I believe these are pretty self-explanatory. Like rollback will roll back to the previous version, undeploy will undeploy that application version, start web server will start your web server, stop will stop your web server, and restart will initiate a restart of your web server. So I just showed you these commands. It is under your application deploy options where you can execute these commands. Guys, are we all clear till here? Everyone? All these 100 resources wants to communicate with each other. Does Chef install keys? Why is the key needed? For the purpose of communication, why do you require keys? If machine 1 wants to talk to machine 2 for exchanging some information, it does not require key. It requires networking. You mean SSH and all of that? Yes. So why do worry? Here. You have an I'll show you an EC2 instance itself. So this is an EC2 instance which is created as part of this configuration. So this is by default your EC2 instance created. So right now I did not define any key. If I want, I can define. Chef allows me that liberty. Clear? If you want, you can define that. It always gives you that liberty. Because at the end of the day, yeah, through Chef only I'm telling. Through Chef, you can integrate keys. That's what I'm trying to say. Even I'm not saying manually. I did not define in my code, so it did not do. If I want, I can define that in a code and it can be done. Making sense? So right now I did not define, and that is why you notice this C3 large instance does not have any key pair associated. Okay. But if I want specifically, I need to define that. But downloading keys, will we need to write code? Absolutely yes. Absolutely yes. You would need public key. I mean, you would need keys if you want to explicitly want it. You need to write a code for it. Even in your CLI, you do that, right? Do you have sample? I need to check. Nothing that I have it on top of my mind or which is available on this machine. I need to check. But there are codes available. You can check on the internet as well, which can be used to perform a lot of customization on the Chef. And now I just say stop because we need to discuss the next part, which is auto healing. Now, what is auto healing functionality? Remember, I told you the agent which is installed on your EC2 instance, the agent which is installed, okay, on EC2 instance will act as a medium of communication between your server and your OpsWork dashboard. Now, let's say if the communication with the agent fails, will your dashboard be able to track the status of your resources? What is your thought around it? If the communication with your EC2 instance, if the communication with that agent fails, will your dashboard or OpsWork dashboard be able to, you know, manage your instances? Yes, no, let's be quick. Obviously, no, right? Because agent is the only single point of contact through which the communication takes place. Now, if that agent itself is not reachable, right? If the communication is broken with that agent, then obviously you will not be able to, what to say, communicate with your resources, or you'll not be able to manage them, right? So for that option, for that reason, we have a functionality called as auto healing. For that reason, we have a functionality called as auto healing. Auto healing is nothing but if the communication between your machine is lost, right? It's a process of bringing back your instance to online if they stop communicating with your OpsWork dashboard. Okay. So we all understand that every instance in OpsWork in a stack has an OpsWork stack agent which is communicating. If OpsWork dashboard does not hear from an agent for more than 5 minutes, then it will consider that instance to be failed and it will perform auto healing. Now, as a part of auto healing, what it does, it tries to restart that machine so that the communication can be re-enabled. It tries to restart that machine so that your machine can re-establish the communication, right? Because if the communication fails, then your machine cannot be, monitored or managed using OpsWork. So to ensure that for more than 5 minutes, if the OpsWork is not listening from the server, right, then it will try to auto heal, and as a part of auto heal, it will try to restart your machine. In case of your instance store, it will completely stop that instance, delete the associated volumes, restart, or restart your new machine, attach a new public IP, because in instance store we all understand that there is no local operating system. It has to be from the S3 repository of AWS, right? Similarly, so it will fetch that new AMI and start your machine. In case of your EBS back, it will stop your EC2 instance, verifies that it has stopped, and starts that EC2 instance once again. That's how your auto healing functionality works. So the purpose of auto healing is to ensure communication is always up and running. Are we clear? Everyone, are we clear? Can I have quick confirmation from everyone? Only a couple of people responding, others I would appreciate if you can be quick enough to respond. If there are many customer transactions happening at that time, if the auto heals shutdowns, then it will be a problem. Obviously, yes. Let's say your server is running and you have enabled an auto healing, and at the same time, let's assume that OpsWork dashboard does not hear from your machine, right, for a long time, for more than 5 minutes, then automatically this auto healing will kick in and it might become a problem, right? Like in scenarios like your network failure, or reachability related issue, or on the server itself if there is some issue. So all those scenarios. So again, auto healing is your choice. If you want, you can disable that as well. Okay. So you have your choice. If you don't want it, disable it. By default it is enabled, okay, but in case you don't want it, disable it. The choice is always yours. Clear? So next, talking about your Chef Automate. So your Chef Automate is pretty much the similar way about your Opswork stack, but here it will leverage all your open source cookbooks, recipes, tools. Okay, basically your community support is what it will take, open source community, and again using Chef also you will be performing centralized management. So AWS Opswork was also using Chef, but it had a lot of customization with respect to AWS. But here it is purely leveraging only your Chef tools for performing automation and entire infrastructure management. Okay. And when we talk about Puppet, similarly, like similarly, how you manage it, your Chef, similarly in your Puppet also you'll have your open source tools of your Puppet, okay, where you'll create one centralized server with Puppet Forge module, and you'll create multiple host nodes where the agent would be installed, and using this centralized server you can manage this host nodes, okay, and deploy any changes, make any configuration packages, installations. All of that can be done using this centralized Puppet Forge module or centralized host server. Okay, it is kind of more or less like an orchestration from a central server. That's your AWS Opswork for Puppet Enterprise. Can we have Chef and Puppet study material? I don't have anything in specific which I can share, to be very honest. Okay, I have some video files and all of that, but again, those are large enough which I cannot upload to LMS portal. Okay, I don't have any book material which I can share. If restart not perform like hang mode, Pawan, I did not understand that question. When you say restart not perform, your question is from auto healing option. What is that hang mode? Like in case if the restart did not take place, if you have enabled auto healing, automatically it will restart. It will try to restart. And if your machine runs into some kind of problem and it's goes into hang mode, then you will need to perform manual intervention in those cases. But by default, it is designed to perform automation. Pawan, am I making sense? So I think your question is, let's say the server is restarting, and while it is restarting, it has, it is not able to successfully restart. It is in hang mode. Then in that case, what happens? For auto scaling, in that scenario, what happens? So to answer this question, there you will need to perform manual intervention. But I'm very sure if you have hundreds and thousands of server, not all 1,000 servers will jump into hang mode, right? Maybe one or two. Yes, there manual intervention would be needed. So are we all clear with AWS Opswork? Can I have quick confirmation from all of you? And please be informed one thing, Opswork when you're practicing, it will come with a cost. Okay. So please be informed. Please be informed. Once you're done with your practice, you do not forget to delete. If you forget to delete, then you'll generate a bill, and that would be huge. Let me tell you very honestly, if you forget to delete, then that will generate a huge bill, which you might not like it. So please, whenever you're practicing, once you're done, clean your dashboard. So make this as an habit so that you will, avoid running into any kind of unnecessary bills. Are we good? Can I start with the next part of discussion, which is your elastic beanstalk? Everyone? We can use either chef or puppet. Absolutely, yes. It's not mandatory for you to know both. Either of this should be fine. All right. So before I move forward, okay, couple of people requesting for a break. Not a problem. Let us do one thing. Let us take a quick 5 minutes break. Let us come back from break. We'll discuss about elastic beanstalk, and that's where we'll call it a day for our today's session. Okay. So let us have a quick break for 5 minutes, and then we'll continue. All right. I'll see you guys in 5 minutes. Hey guys, I'm back from break. Let me know once you guys are back from break. We'll continue further with our session. Is everyone back from break? Yes? Is everyone back from break? Awesome. So now, moving a bit forward, talking about the next service on AWS, which is your Elastic Beanstalk. Okay, which is your Elastic Beanstalk. So we talked about CloudFormation, where we understood it is nothing but deploying your infrastructure as a code. We talked about OpsWork, where we understood it is nothing but a configuration as a code. Now, Elastic Beanstalk, when I talk about, it's a platform as a service which is being offered by AWS to perform hosting of your application, web hosting of your application. It's a platform as a service. Okay, Elastic Beanstalk is a web hosting platform offered by Amazon. Basically, what it tells you is that as an organization, you don't have to worry about the underlying infrastructure. A lot of time, what happens, if I want to run my application, I should first create an EC2 instance. While creating EC2 instance, I need to decide which operating system. I need to define the size of instance. I need to define what middleware, what runtime, what libraries, and then on top of that, I deploy my application package. Yes or no? Everyone. Then on top of it is where I deploy my application package. Now, in this scenario, can I say right from your operating system layer up to your application layer, everything is my management responsibility? When you go with EC2, right from your operating system, then middleware, your libraries, your runtime, your application, everything becomes your overhead or your responsibility. Agree with me? If there is an operating system related, corruption or operating system gets corrupted, your responsibility. If your middleware is not updated, your responsibility. Anything and everything there becomes your responsibility. Now you as a developer, you don't want to take this overhead. Then AWS gives you a choice. The choice is Elastic Beanstalk, where it says, as a developer, you don't worry about all of this. You bring your application package and host your application. You bring your application package and host your application. So I'll show it to you on the dashboard. Say Elastic Beanstalk. Okay. Directly here, it is not asking me to create any instance or anything. Okay. It is directly asking me to create an application. Give a name to your application. Give a name to your application. Once you define a name, it will ask you what is the platform which you are looking forward to. Your code is compatible with which platform? Is it .NET, .NET on Windows, Docker, Glassfish, Go, Java, Node.js, Python, PHP, Ruby, Tomcat? You can select your underlying platform. So let me say Tomcat. So depending on your business requirement, you will decide. Okay. So I'm saying Tomcat, and along with Tomcat, which version of Java also I can define. Whether I want Coreta or whether I want Java, right? I can decide. So let me say Tomcat Java, Tomcat 7 with Java 7 is what I want to use, right? So pay attention. So far, I'm not creating any EC2 instance, guys. I'm not creating any EC2 instance, right? And it will ask me, it will give me a choice. Do you want to use some sample application for the purpose of understanding how this service works, or you can upload your code, or you can upload your code. So I'll say upload it from a local file. You can have your code package file in your S3 URL, basically as an object, and you can provide that URL here so it can fetch from there, or you can upload from here. So I'll just upload it from my local machine. So I'm uploading this calendar.war file, right? Then I'll say configure more option. Now, why are we doing this configure more option? The configure more option basically will allow me that when I'm using my Elastic Beanstalk, it should not be a case that I miss out on a lot of integration, because when I use EC2, you might tell me, Prashant, I can use load balancing, I can use auto scaling, I can use SNS, I can use monitoring, I can use databases, I can use specific VPC. So will I not get all those choices here? Absolutely. You have all of those choices also available here. You have all of those choices available here. So let's go one by one. Okay. So here you can define if you want to deploy your instance as a single instance, or you want to deploy in a load balance setup. Depending on your business requirement, you can define whether your application should be as a part of your load balance setup or as a single instance. You can define minimum maximum quantity. So this is for your auto scaling part. So here you have an option to define your scaling trigger, which metric do you want to scale upon, right? If that metric is, that threshold is met, automatically scale up, scale down. You can define that. You can define what instance type you want, T2 micro, T3 large, whatever is your business requirement. You can choose based of your on basis of your choice. You can define which AMI. You can define which availability zones, number of availability zones to use when you're deploying in a load balance setup. When you're deploying in auto scaling, you might decide that I want to use only this 2 availability zone, or I want to use only 3 availability zone. So depending on your business requirement, you can define all of this, right? And if you want to define any placement group, then you can define that also, right? So if you don't want, you can even say single instance. So first thing, are we clear? Along with Elastic Beanstalk, also we can leverage auto scaling, we can leverage load balancing functionality. Yes or no? Everyone? Along with Elastic Beanstalk, also you can leverage your load balancing and you can leverage your auto scaling, right? Then talking about the next part, monitoring. So the choice is yours now. Do you want to enable enhanced monitoring, basic monitoring, any specific CloudWatch metrics which you want to monitor? So all of that you can define here. All of that you can define here. Okay. You can choose your custom metrics also depending on your business requirement. And it also allows you to stream logs. The logs which are generated on your EC2 can be sent to your CloudWatch. If you want to specifically monitor your logs, so you can enable this also, where the logs from your EC2 instance can be sent out to your CloudWatch. Okay. And obviously that will come with additional cost, right? So apart from that, since this is a platform as a service, so any kind of auto minor version upgrade, AWS is supposed to take care of, right? So you can define a window that during this window only you perform these updates. During this window only you perform this update. Whether you want minor and patch or patch only, you can define that. And while the upgrade is happening, do you want any replacement? If yes, then say replacement. So what will happen is, while it is upgrading your instances, it will ensure that your application is not down by creating a replacement beforehand. Guys, am I making sense? Managed platform updates is nothing but if your instances has to undergo some version upgrade and all of that, so you can define that perform this activity only during this window, and accordingly it will perform. And it is not a mandatory element. If you don't want it, you disable as well. The choice is always yours. Then if you want to enable notification, you want to get integrated with notification part, then give your email addresses and your notification parts can be integrated. So you can receive continuous notifications as well. Then you can define which VPC your instance should be part of, which availability zone your instance should be part of, right? You have a choice to select your own VPCs. Right now I don't have anything, so I'm using the default one. Do you want your application to be publicly accessible? If yes, then select public IP address. If no, you can leave this option. Then apart from that, do you want to integrate database with your application? If yes, here it gives you a choice to integrate your RDS instance, which can be integrated with your application, right? So this is a choice you can leverage, right? If you don't want, do not define. And if you want to enable tags for your application, right, when you have hundreds of instances, you might want to tag your instances for quick identification purpose. So if you want that, then you can enable tags also. So even though this is a platform as a service, can I say it is giving us a granular control on defining what kind of services we want to use? Yes or no? Everyone, even though it's a platform as a service, you still have a choice to define a lot of elements here. Agree with me? Any questions? Any questions from anyone? Should I use variable that created during DB setup? Yes. In your application, you should define the variables of your DB. Can it be associated with Route 53? Absolutely. But not from this window. You need to go back to your, Route 53 window for your application. Based on the granular, the cost will be charged, right? See, whatever as such, Elastic Beanstalk is free. It is not charging anything for Elastic Beanstalk. Now, if you are enabling detail monitoring, the cost for detail monitoring was applicable even under your EC2. So it will come here as well. The cost of forwarding log is applicable even in your EC2. So the same is applicable. So Elastic Beanstalk as such is not charging anything. So whatever are those respective service charges, only those would be applicable. Whatever is the cost for your EC2, whatever is the cost for your storage, that would be applicable. Making sense? So I'll say create application. Now the moment I say create application, okay, the moment I say create application, it will start deploying the underlying infrastructure and start hosting my application. We'll need to wait for a few minutes. Any demo for dynamic web hosting? No, as such, no. Manoj. We don't have any as such demo for dynamic web hosting here. So it is obviously at the backend creating an EC2 instance. Okay. So this EC2 instance is created. So we'll have to wait till it is completely ready. And once it is up and running, we'll be able to see our application deployed. Difference between Lambda and Beanstalk: Lambda is purely for your backend, whereas Beanstalk is kind of your application hosting. When I say application hosting, even it could have your front end and backend together, but Lambda is purely only for your backend task, no front end. And Lambda, when we talk about, there will not be able to see any EC2 instance or anything. Okay, here we have an, we can easily see our EC2 instance. If you want, you can even take access of your EC2 instance by associating key pair, and you're good to go with that. But in Lambda, the entire underlying infrastructure will not be visible to us at all. All right. So almost it is up and running. Let us wait for a few more minutes. So this is my application URL. So it looks like my application is up. So this is my application URL. This is the application which I wanted to upload, and here you go. You notice? So this is the application which I wanted to review. So guys, here, without I having to do anything, it by default had an application created. Yes or no? I just deployed my application package file, nothing else. Rest is taken care by AWS. Am I making sense what your Elastic Beanstalk is? Everyone? And here with Elastic Beanstalk also, you can perform all your detailed monitoring. You can review your logs if you want, right? From your server. So here you go. If you want this log, so if you notice, these are my access logs. These are my access logs, right? So I can review all those logs here. Apart from that, I can check the health. When I say health, it will look for all the parameters. If there are any 200 series response, HTTP 300, HTTP 400, 500 series response, any latency, any load, what is average load, what is average CPU utilization, what is idle CPU, all those details I can review here. This is your detailed monitoring part, right? And apart from that, you can see monitoring in this graphical format as well, right? So you can specifically look for more details around the environment health, what is, value at each stage. So you can here filter out the time range. So the choice is always yours, right? So in addition, if I want, I can integrate with my CloudWatch. I can integrate with my CloudWatch for the purpose of, alarm creations and all of that. And at the later stage of time, if I want to know what are some events that has taken place, if I want to quickly understand if there are any fatal warning, if there is any error, if there is any warning related, logs which are generated or events which are generated from one single window, I can trace them out. Okay. Along with that, I can manage updates. So we did not enable managed updates. So if you want, like, if there are any AutoMiner version upgrades, you want AWS to perform that task on your behalf. So you can say managed updates enabled, and AWS will perform that for all of you. Right. And okay, one more part which I want to talk about it. Give me a moment. So now let's say on this application, over the period of time, let's say I want to change this. I want to change my application code. So how do I do that? All I have to do is say upload and deploy a new version of code. Okay. All I have to say is upload and deploy a new version of code. So let me say this sample.wav file and I say deploy. So pay attention. Right now you are seeing some calendar outcome. If I want to change this code, right, very soon you will see a new outcome. So the deployment is in progress. Okay. And very soon we will see a new version coming in. Hello world. Am I making sense? So over the period of time, even when you have a new, versions of code and something, you don't have to really worry about. Just deploy that new version of code package and it would get deployed. Are we all clear? Everyone, can I have quick confirmation? Only few people responding, others. May I request your responses, please? And not only this, here as a developer, you don't have to worry about the application versions as well. Okay. So application versions management is also taken care by AWS. Like when you deploy multiple versions, right? AWS keeps track of it. If you want to manage them effectively, you can define life cycle for your application versions. So you can enable lifecycle policy telling that, okay, only store this number of application versions or only store applications for this number of days, application versions for this number of days. So if I say 180, that means any application here will be stored for 180 days. After that, do I want to retain that in S3 or I want to delete from S3? The choice is mine. Okay. So, and also this gives an opportunity to roll back. Let's say if I want to roll back to this previous version, I can select that, just say action, say deploy, say deploy. That's it. Now very soon we'll see it is rolling back to the previous version. So I don't have to, perform this task also manually of keeping track of my application version. AWS will take care of it. Lifecycle management and version is nothing but when you have multiple application versions. Let's say every week you're uploading a new file, new package, right? So can I say you'll have n number of application versions? On a month basis, you'll have 4 packages. By quarterly, you will have at least 12 packages. Yes or no? So you might not want to store all of them. Something which you deployed 1 year back, do you want to keep them? If yes, that is your choice. If no, you can define a lifecycle configuration in way that only it keeps the versions which were deployed last 6 months back. All older versions are removed or they are archived in your S3. The choice is always yours. Are we clear? This machine show in EC2 group? Yes, here it is. This is my EC2 instance. On your EC2 dashboard, you will be able to see this detail. And from here, if you want to verify if this is the machine, go back to your application. Go to your configuration section. It will give you your instance ID details. Give me 1 second. Single instance. 1 second. I'll tell you where you can review that. Your instance details should also be visible. Give me 1 second. I'll tell you. Even on this dashboard, you can review, but your EC2 instance is obviously visible here. So this is an EC2 instance which is created. Okay. From your Elastic Beanstalk. So give me 1 second. I'll tell you. So I'm missing on it. Like, there's one place where they give that detail. System monitoring or somewhere. This part. This part where you can review your instance ID. So 23B7, right? 23B7 EC2 instance. Clear? Manoj, is that answering your question? Can we run multiple applications on same instance? No, you cannot. Venkata, I think you also had this similar question. Can I review the instance? So is that question answered? Cool. Any other question from anyone? Any other questions, doubts, queries? And it allows you to create multiple environments. When I say environment, like it allows you to create your front end or your back end. So when you say web server environment, obviously it's your front end. Worker environment, when you want to only for the purpose of back end, then even that option is available under environment tier, right? Then it will only create a backend server, not your front end. So Beanstalk removes the need for understanding infrastructure as it automates the process and gives you full access to it. Manage resources like EC2, load balancing, auto scaling, versions of application, maintaining security, health checks, and monitoring. We saw all of this option, right? There are no additional charges for Beanstalk, and you only pay for the resources you use to store and run your application, nothing else. You're not charged anything out of box for Elastic Beanstalk. So concept of Elastic Beanstalk, you can create applications, right? You can create multiple application versions. I showed you how you can manage those application versions also. You can create environments basically like for your front end and your back end, depending on your business requirement, or you can have both as a part of single environment. The choice is always yours. You can monitor health of your environment. I showed you. So there are 4 color codes on which the environment health can be seen on the dashboard. Here, if you're seeing this health, right now it says okay, right? So here, this, right? So these are the 4. Ideally, when there are different color codes available for it, like when gray instance is being updated, green is nothing but health checks passed, yellow when 1 or more health checks are failed, red when 3 or more health checks fail, right? Depending on the color code, you can understand the severity. Okay. So right now I have, for us it's all green at the moment, but if it jumps into any other color, then accordingly what it implies is what it was given in the slide. So it will create an IAM role. Why IAM role is created? Because on your behalf, Elastic Beanstalk is creating an EC2 instance. On your behalf, it is deploying an application on your EC2 instance, right? So for that purpose, it requires an IAM rule. Now you don't have to do anything out of box here. That is taken care by AWS itself. Okay, the role creation. It will itself take care of this role creation while you're creating your application. So we just deployed a web application. Next, Beanstalk versus OpsWork versus CloudFormation. So Beanstalk, we understood it's the simplest and fastest way of hosting your application. Okay, where you don't have to worry about underlying infrastructure. OpsWork, we understood it is a configuration as management service where from one single window you can manage n number of resources without having to log in or without having to, worry about each and every resource, right? And then CloudFormation. CloudFormation is nothing but a service when you want to create your large scale infrastructure, right? Then you can leverage your CloudFormation service. Guys, are we all clear? Excuse me. Are we all clear? Everyone? With this, basically, we complete our module 9. Okay. With this, we complete our module 9. If anyone has any question, then please do let me know. If not, If not, then there is one small topic from your module 3, which is your storage gateway. Okay. So guys, any question from anyone before I start with that small discussion which is pending from our module 3, which is your storage gateway? Anyone has any questions? If no question, can I have one quick confirmation from all of you telling no questions, so that I'll be aware and accordingly we can move forward. Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you everyone for that quick confirmation. So let's move bit forward and let's get started with that pending part, which is your, give me 1 second. I'll just clean my dashboard before I move forward. So we have a small topic from our module 3, which is your storage gateway, right? So what exactly storage gateway is, why do we require, how it works, is what we will discuss as part of this session, this discussion. So storage gateway, if I have to tell in a very simple terms, right? This is used when you have part of your infrastructure in your on-premises and you have your storage on cloud, or vice versa, right? When you have part of your infrastructure in your on-premises and a storage on your cloud, like let's say your application is sitting in your on-premises and the data is sitting in your cloud. So your application wants to access the data from a cloud. So if you want that kind of integration, then you have to leverage this storage gateway kind of services. Now in my on-premises, pay attention to this question. In my on-premises, can I say my application can be designed to use different kind of storage? Yes or no? In my on-premises, can I say my application can be designed to use different kind of storages? Agree with me? Like you can decide to store your data in your file systems like your EFS, NFS kind of databases. You can have your data stored on your volumes, that is your hard disk and all of that. So you can design your application to fetch data from local hard disk attached, or you can have your data stored in your tape drives and all of that, and you can design your application to fetch information from your tape drives. Now help me understand, if my data is stored in some NFS network files, right? And if my application has to fetch data from NFS, so the mechanism to fetch data from NFS and a mechanism to fetch data from your hard disk, is that same or different? Everyone, you have your application stored in your NFS network file share, right? So the application is designed to fetch data from your NFS. Now all of the sudden you want your application to fetch that information from your hard disk attached to the server. Are both the mechanism used, right? Fetching a data from NFS or fetching a data from your hard disk, are they same or different? Obviously they are different, because NFS understand one different protocol, your hard disk understand different protocol. Agree with me? The reason why they are different is, NFS, when your application is supposed to fetch data from NFS, it has to use certain protocol. And when application has to fetch that information from hard disk or your SSDs, then can I say it has to use a different protocol? The mechanism of fetching the data cannot be same. Agree with me? Everyone? Guys, can I have quick confirmation? Yes, no? Awesome. Right? Mechanism of fetching data cannot be same. Now let's assume that I'm an organization xyz.com. I have my application designed in such a way that it is to fetch information only from NFS. But now, as part of migration, I moved all my data to cloud and I stored all my data on a S3 bucket. So will my application be able to fetch data from my S3 bucket using the NFS protocol? Will my application be able to fetch data from S3 bucket using NFS protocol? Obviously, no. Obviously, no. Agree with me? Because your S3 understand only HTTPS protocol. Your S3 understands only HTTPS. But your application is generating an NFS request. So will that be understood by your S3 bucket? No, right? Guys, are we all on the same page? So storage gateway is basically a service which is used to bridge that gap. So in your on-premises, your application can store data, or your application can be designed to fetch information from file systems, from volumes, or from tapes. But now in cloud, you have kept all your data in your S3, and your application has to fetch this information from your cloud. So at that point of time, it becomes really difficult, right? At that point of time, it becomes difficult to fetch information because your S3 understands only HTTPS, whereas your application generates NFS, or your application generates SCSI request, or it generates tape request, which is not understood by S3. So there your storage gateway comes into picture. Okay, your storage gateway will change the protocols. Now storage gateway, there are three types. You have something called as file gateway, you have something called as volume gateway, and you have something called as tape gateway. So talking about file gateway, when your application in your on-premises is designed in such a way that it should only fetch data from NFS. Now all of a sudden you have moved all your data to cloud where the data is stored in S3. Your application, you have two choices. You have two choices. Either you change the architecture of your application and design it in such a way that it knows how to fetch data from S3 using HTTPS protocol. This is first choice. Now you don't want to do that rework. You say that let my application generate NFS request. Let my application generate NFS request, and I leverage this file gateway which will convert this NFS into HTTP format and fetch the information. Am I making sense? You have two choices. You have your application already created in your on-premises, which is running for last 5 years. The application is designed to fetch information only from your file servers, from your network file systems, right? So obviously it will generate your NFS request. So either you change your application architecture when you have moved your infrastructure to cloud, when you have moved your data to cloud, you change your application architecture and design it to generate HTTPS request instead of NFS, or you continue using NFS, leverage this file gateway service, which will translate your NFS request into HTTPS format. Are we all clear what your file gateway is, everyone? Yes. So this file gateway is a virtual component which needs to be installed in your on-premises. Okay. It's a virtual component, virtual file server. It has to be installed. So this is embedded on your on-prem server through an NFS client. So it will convert operation, file operation to object request to your S3. Basically, your NFS requests are converted to your HTTPS request. That's it. That is your file gateway. Next, your volume gateway. When we talk about volume gateway, so here your application is designed to fetch information from your volumes. So your volumes understand SCSI protocol, like how your NFS understand, how your file system understand NFS protocol. Here your volumes, your application is designed to generate or fetch data from your volumes. So at that point of time, it will generate SCSI request. That is nothing but Internet Small Computer System Interface request. Okay. But now that your data is stored in S3, right, it will not understand SCSI. So you need to have a volume gateway which will convert this SCSI to HTTPS. So no need to re-architect your application, right? Now volume gateway has two choices. Volume gateway has two choices. That is nothing but your store mode and cache mode. Store mode is nothing but 100% of data is available in your on-prem as well as on cloud. 100% of data is available in your on-prem as well on your cloud. So that is your stored mode. Okay. So complete data is cached locally and complete data is also available in your S3. So that is your stored mode. But when you go with your cache mode, only frequently accessed data is available in your on-prem, remaining is available in your cloud. Am I making sense, guys? Volume gateway or any storage gateway, it is just gonna convert your local protocol to HTTPS format. That is the only single definition, one line definition of your storage gateway. So that you don't have to perform re-architecture of your application. Now, why, Prashant? Why should I not perform re-architecture of your application? Let me tell you, at times when you re-architecture your application, that is a more, tedious task. Do you all agree? Let's say you have an application which is running for last 5 years, last 7 years. Now, all of a sudden you want to re-architecture that application. Do you think it is an easy job? No, right? Re-architecturing your application is not an easy job, because you're not sure after I re-architecture will I get same performance, will it function in the same way, or it would lead to a bigger problems. So what they suggest is you can leverage these gateway services, storage gateway services. So no matter if your application is designed to fetch information from respective storages, these gateways will help you convert your storage protocols to HTTPS object request. Am I making sense with this, everyone? It is no major rocket science. It is just performing the conversion. So every storage has its own, storage protocol used. Agree with me? Like if you have a data stored in your Google Drive, obviously you cannot use, NFS request to access data from your Google Drive. You have to generate HTTPS request. Only then you can fetch that data, right? Similarly, if you have your data available in your hard disk, you cannot go to your browser and generate an HTTP request to access that data. So every storage has its own protocol. Now you designed your application to use that protocol, but now you have also moved your data from your on-premises to your cloud, where you're storing it on your, cloud storage. So your application is still not re-architected. So there you can use these gateways to convert your protocols to that which is compatible with your cloud. So that will avoid the need of re-architecturing your entire application. It will also ensure that your data which is available in cloud can be accessed by your application in your on-premises. So same thing goes with your tape gateway. Tape gateway, the application is by default designed to understand SCSI protocol. This SCSI will have media changer and tape drive. So this is converted to by tape gateway to HTTPS format. Am I making sense what your storage gateway is, everyone? Because this was one topic which was pending. So I just want to quickly check with all of you. Storage gateway in a very simple term is nothing but a service which will allow you to convert your storage protocol to that which is compatible with your cloud storage. So this was one small topic. So as informed earlier also, this is a very small topic which was pending. Even when we were discussing our module 3, I told you that, we'll find some time later and we'll discuss. So I thought to, today when we had this time, I wanted to leverage and we wanted to complete this. So with this, we complete all our module 9. So let me tell you, we have completed 90% of course curriculum. So I want to quickly touch base with each and everyone and understand from day 1 till today. Can I say you had a good learning experience so far? You got to learn a lot of, details about cloud computing. Yes. And I do assume that all of you guys by now are very comfortable with AWS console, because I tried my level best to ensure that I stay away from slides and I spend majority of my time on this cloud console, right? So that you become more and more familiar with the console. So that was the intention why we did not read through slides at many a times. Like if you talk about many services, right? We did not discuss from the slides. Rather, we spent our time discussing this subject on the console. So with this, all our module 9s are completed. Now tomorrow when we start with our module 10, which is about migration, okay, which is about migration on AWS. So that migration part is not there as part of examination, but we have included that. So that you have questions coming in interview and you don't go blank in your interviews. Okay, to ensure that you don't go blank on interview, we will discuss about migration. Migration would be theoretical part. Let me tell you guys, we'll not have any demo around migrations. It will be purely a theoretical discussion which we'll have. Okay, but if you want to practice, self-paced demo material is available. I mean, content is available in the LMS portal. Step by step screenshots are given which you can practice. Okay, but let me tell you the agenda for next 2 days, because after our today's session we have 2 more sessions till Friday, where so the agenda would be like tomorrow we'll try to complete our module 10 majority of the part. There would be small portion which will be left. So first 30 minutes of Friday's session will leverage to discuss that. Then after that, I want to spend some time discussing about how to go about preparing for your examination, how to go about preparing for your interviews, right? And how to go about preparing your resume, because you might get surprised why am I talking about resume. But let me tell you, even after having good amount of knowledge, a lot of people are not able to get relevant job calls. I mean, this is something which I observed. Like people have good knowledge about industry, they have good knowledge about the technology, they have good expertise, but they somewhere don't get relevant job calls and they have to compromise in those cases, right? So we'll try to see how do we ensure that we get relevant job calls in our Friday session also. So we'll talk about certifications, we'll talk about examinations, we'll talk about interview, we'll talk about resume, right? And I'll also share you some materials. Okay, I'll also share you some materials which you can use to prepare for your next level of certifications as well, right? So that would be the agenda. That would be the agenda for our next 2 sessions. So now if anyone has any specific question, do let me know. If not, I think that's it from my side for today's session. I hope you all enjoyed the session. I still see many of you guys have not marked your feedback. Not sure any specific challenge in doing so, but I would request you to please spare at least 5 to 10 seconds of time to mark your feedback. If you enjoyed my session so far, feel free to mark it as an excellent, because excellent is the only positive feedback. Anything apart from excellent would be considered as a negative feedback. Okay. Are we going to get the book to study with? Absolutely. I'll give you book material as well. Obviously, the virtual book material, I mean the soft copy, I'll be sharing. Don't worry. In our Friday session, I'll share all of that details. Okay. Not only for this examination, even for your next levels of examination, I'll share you the relevant book materials. Right. The class recordings are always available. You have lifetime access to this class recording. You can always go back, look into the class recording. But in addition to that, for you to study, for you to prepare for your exam interview and all of that, I'll give you a lot of additional material which you can leverage. Can you please share some details on AWS CLI? AWS CLI, I can share you relevant study material, Prasanna. Okay. If time permits, I'll show you demo, but I don't want to promise or commit anything at this moment. I hope that works. Yes. Kafka container discussion to happen? No, Nimai. Will we have access to this class recording after the course? You have lifetime access, Mervin. You have lifetime access to all of this. All this class recording, the course content and all of this, you have lifetime access. Can you share study materials, AWS for machine learning? I need to check, John, because I don't have that great expertise on machine learning. So I never took interest in that side. So I'll try to see if I have some materials around it. Or some of my friends or, known people, they have some materials. So I'll try to check with them and I'll try to share if I get something. When I launch Linux web hosting, needs to create a user, or I can run as a root user. You can run as a root user. Okay. Can we deploy Informatica jobs to AWS? Absolutely yes, Vijay Lakshmi. Indeed, Informatica is supported. They have their very good material. Informatica jobs on AWS. So it does support, you have AWS Marketplace. So you can leverage for your Informatica, MDM, ETL, all of those can be used. Please mention the path where the material is kept in LMS. Sure, Bitika, like so far I have not uploaded. So I'll show you where it is and only then I'll upload, okay? In the LMS portal. Before I upload, I'll show all of you guys where I'm uploading. I'll keep you guys informed about it. Any other question? If we have any doubts after the sessions, is there a way we can contact you for the doubts? So you'll not be able to directly reach out to me. You'll have to reach out to Edureka support team and they can help you with. Edureka support team is available 24/7 and they'll be more than happy to extend help and support to you for all your doubts. All right. So if no further question, then I think, yes, we are done with our today's session. Thank you so much. I will see you all tomorrow. Till then, bye-bye. Take care. Wish you all a great day, great evening. Right? Signing off for the day, guys.